Configuration packages in Agile Data Engine. Configuration packages provide a way to perform global configuration and customization of Agile Data Engine and its behavior. Thanks to configuration packages, it is possible to share configurations between projects, also in a situation when multiple database engines are used or in migration projects. Configuration packages are divided into three categories: base configurations, project defaults, and solution development. Configuration packages are committed and deployed in the same way as entity packages, and a fresh installation of Agile Data Engine comes with pre-configured default set of configurations. The names of Agile Data Engine configuration packages start with config and underscore and are tagged with #system. Some packages such as load schedules configuration have a visual editor, and other are maintained in JSON format. In order to make changes to such configuration package, edit it directly in Agile Data Engine Designer or export it and use an external editor and import it back in Designer. Config packages can be shared between projects and Agile Data Engine accounts within SaaS or private installations. Some configuration packages are updated in Designer only, and some need to be committed and deployed into runtime environments. Config entity defaults lets users customize and configure entity types, naming conventions, and attributes. These settings affect creation of new entities and allow defining default set of attributes per entity, such as names, prefix or suffix, physical type, zone, whether it is automatically managed. It also helps enforce naming conventions. Config load transformations. Config package allows developing custom transformations, such as defining logic in a database-specific SQL dialect for entity attributes. There is a set of predefined transformations such as hash for calculating data vault hashes, concat for concatenation of mapped attributes, or data vault business key transformation. If a transformation formula is not in use within the Agile Data Engine project, there is an option to hide it from the designer. The transformation formulas are DBMS product-specific SQL. Transformation formula accept free marker syntax. In this simple SQL example, all the source mapped attributes are converted to string, wrapped with a trim function, and concatenated with a tilde character. Please note that it is possible to add conditions. In the example shown, the attribute has next check is performed to avoid adding a tilde at the end of the formula. This example illustrates how to define a transformation named Custom Hub, which has its description, is shown in Agile Data Engine Designer as position 14. The sample formula refers to Snowflake SQL dialect, and the generated output is shown at the bottom. It is possible to add multiple entries for other databases in DBMS Transformation Formulas section. Config datatypes is a configuration package that is used to configure datatype mappings from source system database engine to logical datatypes used in Agile Data Engine. Logical datatypes are used in the Designer attribute screen and during entity import. It is possible to add new logical data types and update existing. Data warehouse logical data type configurations are managed inside the JSON array block named DW, logical data types. In the example shown, a logical data type varchar is defined, and the right-hand side illustrates how it is mapped to BigQuery string and Snowflake varchar SQL types. Config entity permissions is a configuration package that is used to configure entity grants, such as adding Snowflake user roles to specific entity types. Entity permission configurations are managed inside the JSON array block named entity permissions. In the example shown, a select permission is defined. Grantee configurations are managed inside the JSON array block named grantees. It is also possible to refer to predefined environment variables or environment variables defined in a config package. Config environment variables with a $sign. Config environment variables is a package that is used to configure environment-specific variables. The settings are managed inside the JSON array block named environments, and the names can be defined there. Environment variables configurations are managed inside the JSON array block named environment variables, and variable name and value needs to be assigned. Variables in Agile Data Engine can be referenced with angle brackets. One useful real-life example of using variables might be setting variables for environment-specific load scheduling where dev, QA and prod environments have different schedules. In this case, development environment needs no schedule, which means the workflow can only be executed manually. In QA, the load is executed on weekdays only where in production on a daily basis. Another frequently implemented feature is differentiation of environment-specific virtual warehouses in Snowflake. Config load schedules is a configuration package that is used to define load schedules. Agile Data Engine provides an user interface that can be used for creating and editing schedule, and similar to other configuration packages, config load schedules can also be exported as JSON, edited and imported back to Designer. The schedules are reusable and usually this package grows along with the project. Setting up triggered schedules for a schedule will trigger selected schedules after the source workflow has finished. Triggered schedules can be added from the Load Schedule Summary view. Schedule-specific variables can be used to define variables and variable values that are specific to the execution of a schedule. New variables can be defined or referred to variables defined elsewhere, such as environment variables and values assigned to them, which will be resolved when the schedule is executed in a runtime environment. Cron expression defines the schedule. If left blank, the schedule is triggered manually. Load schedules have two settings which are described in the next slides. Those are DAG generation mode and pool assignment. DAG generation mode is a setting which controls how workflows are generated. It can be set on runtime environment level with config environment variables and on schedule level with config load schedules. Optimized entity-oriented means loads are executed in entity operators in a sequential manner, i.e. the DAGs contain entity operators and loads into those entities are executed within the entity operators. Only entities that have incoming loads are included. This mode prevents loads from blocking each other as multiple loads into the same target cannot be run in parallel. This optimizes execution wait times caused by entity locks which consume pool slots when loads are queuing without actually doing anything. As a possible downside, loads are not visually separate in the DAGs. When opening a failed entity node, you need to search for the actual failure in the log in case there are multiple loads into that entity. Load-oriented optimization means generated DAGs contain only load tasks, reducing the unnecessary scheduling or running overhead related to entity operators. It is load-based and the loads correspond to the incoming and outgoing loads defined in ADE Designer. It is more difficult to read DAGs and relations between entities. Sequential task-oriented is a special mode for getting rid of overhead in simple DAGs meant to run in a fast cycle, near real-time. Generated DAGs only contain one task which runs all loads in sequence. The running order of loads which are not dependent on each other is random, but the original order of dependent loads is followed. This mode disables all parallelism inside the DAG, therefore it is advised to carefully test it case by case before enabling it. Workflow orchestration runs tasks in pools. Pool size sets the maximum number of concurrent tasks that can be run at the same time. Note that the overall degree of parallelism is limited by target database scaling and Agile Data Engine runtime size. The runtime size varies from small with a limit of 2 active tasks up to extra large with a limit of 40 parallel executions. The default is 5. Workflow orchestration has 2 pools by default. Default pool contains tasks that are disabled or have no loads are run in this pool, for example entity tasks, start tasks and end tasks. Loading default pool contains load tasks that have actual operations and that are not disabled are run in this pool. The pool size limits concurrency against the target database. Increase the loading default pool size to allow more concurrency if the target database can handle it. Pool settings can be accessed in the workflow orchestration of each Agile Data Engine runtime environment by selecting pools from the admin menu. Users can define new pools and control in which pool loads or workflows are run to isolate tasks into separate pools. Operations running in separate pools do not affect each other from the workflow orchestration point of view. Obviously, the operations could still be running on the same resources within the target database. Note that if custom pools are defined for schedules or loads, those pools also have to be created in workflow orchestration in different runtime environments and pool sizes have to be configured. Otherwise the schedules and loads will not be run at all. A sample schedule definition summary. Schedule has its ID, name, cron expression, may be assigned to a load pool and there are various modes the DAG is generated. The description of the schedule accepts tags. Config systems is a configuration package for configuring source systems for source entities. Each source system gets its unique ID, requires a name, and a description can be optionally provided. It is possible to add a new source system, update the contents of an existing one, or delete it. Only soft deletion is available. Systems are referenced by source system in Agile Data Engine Entity Summary. Config load templates is a configuration package that is used to create reusable load templates, which can be used directly from Designer user interface. All characteristics of current load are saved to template, such as load steps, including all the SQL code and load options. A load can be defined from a template by selecting Add from Template option. This will add load steps as defined in the configuration package. Load templates can be as well edited directly in the underlying JSON file. Config issue track system is a configuration package that is used to configure a link to an issue track system, such as Atlassian Jira. Once defined, the commit messages are resolved into clickable links as in the example shown. Config validations is a configuration package that is used to add commit message validations to package commits. For example, it might be used to enforce having a Jira ticket number with each commit message. Each validation needs to have a rule defined as a regular expression, a message which describes the reason of invalid commit, and can be configured as a warning or an error which would block the form submission.